So it's really about understanding the goal, like what kind of
Mhm.
information that you want to get out of it. Like, sure, you can run a generic test and just kind of like run people through. But what usability testing really stands out is you can ask very specific questions. This tool is super powerful, and I really want to make it accessible for all businesses. So it's like, how can I make it easy? So we created the templates, we created
Mhm.
Scout to like share it with more people. Usability testing does fit in really well with A/B testing because if you find out where the friction is and where the problems are, and then you're actually able to go like, okay, let's go A/B test like different solutions for this and find out what the winner is, right? So that's where it kind of like pairs really well.
Quinn is the founder and CEO of Conversion Crimes, a platform for gaining insights and increasing your website performance using usability testing. Usability testing is an overlooked tool that every store owner should use, especially store owners that don't have a lot of traffic and can't run split tests. Quinn's company, Conversion Crimes, is offering an affordable and easy way to start running usability tests. In our conversation, we talked about what is usability testing, common misconceptions about usability testing, the pros and cons of usability testing versus split testing, how usability testing is different from Heatmaps and watching session recordings, what to expect from your usability testing, and much more.
Welcome to the EcomXFactor podcast, where it's all about launching and scaling your business using sales funnels, automations, and smart marketing. And now, please welcome your host, the founder of EcomXFactor, Yaron Bin.
Hi Quinn, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. We had already like a long conversation before we got started, and I'm very curious and excited for this conversation. Before we get started, can you share a bit about Conversion Crimes and what are you guys doing these days?
Yeah, so Conversion Crimes is a usability user testing platform where we help small businesses increase conversions and improve user experience. And if you're not familiar with this kind of testing, it's basically sending a human to your website while they're recording their screen and they're dictating their experience. Like, oh, what is this over here? I expect when I click on this to see this. Oh, wow, I didn't expect that. Or what does that mean? I don't understand what this means. And so you really kind of understand exactly where the friction and problems are on the site just by watching the video.
Awesome. And you've been a CRO for many years before. And how did you come up with this great idea?
Yeah, so before I was doing really large projects for my agency, Zeda Labs. And user testing was just one of the things that we're doing among many. So we do these like really long, like 8 to 10 month projects where we did all this customer research. We set up their analytics. We did testing. We did user testing. We did competitor research, pricing, strategy, going through like operations processes, and then kind of packaging that up into a brand new brand, website, copy, everything to really kind of take a business to the next level, right? You kind of get to a point where it's like what got you here won't get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point that people came to us at the agency. We're like, we duct taped all this stuff together and we found this success. We found product market fit, but like now we need to go to the next level. And that's where we came in. And what ended up happening is through these projects, these were like $1 million businesses, about $1 to like $3 or $4 million businesses that we were working with. And what we found is that the biggest reaction that we got, not just from these clients, but also from our audits, which were much smaller versions that we kind of sold as a product a service, was that everybody commented on the user testing about how much like insight it gave them. And so we kind of went out there and all of the platforms were mostly towards enterprise and were like super complicated. So we kind of like built our own to like fulfill our own desire. And when the pandemic happened, I was kind of like, I've been trying to get the startup going, Conversion Crimes, but it was really hard to manage both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of made me rethink priorities. And I was like, you know what, this is what I want. Like, and I just YOLO'd and I closed the agency and went all in on Conversion Crimes. And then like 2 months after we launched, we were funded by the Calm Company Fund. So it's been like quite a ride.
I kind of get a feeling that usability test is overlooked, especially, I don't know if especially, but I know among e-commerce store owners. Am I right to Stasis? Do you kind of feel the same?
Yeah, a lot of them, they don't know what it is. So they always want to get on like demo calls with me and like talk to me about it and things like that. Because when they start to get into conversion rate optimization, A/B testing has been kind of the gold standard for increasing conversions. But what we're kind of learning like now is that what was working like 5 to 10 years ago and was like kind of a standard is not really working today. Like after working with these businesses and stuff, I realized that A/B testing is really kind of not the most efficient use of resources for businesses under like 5 to 10 million in revenue.
Can you elaborate on that? Why? How come?
Well, with the privacy stuff coming on, people using browsers like ad blockers and stuff like this, the tracking stuff that's kind of going on. There's also like bots, and to set up analytics, like I was paying $20,000 to set up my clients' analytics and stuff. And then you have to pay someone to like manage that, make sure, all the data is clean and all that kind of stuff to actually get good data to make decisions from. And I just think there's better uses of resources, which is like why I'm so passionate about usability testing and bringing this to the small business market, because it's just like watch someone use your thing, figure out where they're confused and fix that, rather than having some optimizer be like, oh, like here's like, like something I see. And it's like, sure. A lot of agencies that I've talked, not all of them, I don't want to like make like a huge blanket statement here, but they use playbooks. So the first like 3 months of the engagement, they're like, we know these things work on the majority of sites. So we get them these wins earlier. And then they kind of go through and test other things for the engagement. So they get them excited about getting wins. And then they kind of like test other stuff. And it's just, I don't know. The other day, someone posted on Twitter, they're like, yeah, like 6 years of A/B testing, and the majority of my tests were like inconclusive, didn't actually result in a lift or what have you. And I think that it's a very powerful tool for big businesses, because a small increase in conversion rate and all these A/B tests can mean like millions of dollars for the bottom line. But it just takes a lot of resources to do it, and to do it right. And if you don't do it right, you can get data back and you're making a business decision on data that's not accurate. So I think people like it because they feel more confident in the decision, because they're like, oh, it was a test and it's like for sure going to work. But I just kind of think of James Clear in his book, Atomic Habits. Like I loved that book. And it talks about like, if you get 1% better every day, after a year, you're 37 times better, like bigger for the thing. It's like, if you get something wrong, it's only like 3%, like that it kind of goes down. I wish I could show like the visualization here, but there's not like, it's just about making it easier to use and making small changes over time to do stuff in the most efficient way. So that was kind of a little rant, but.
No, it's fine. It's cool. It's totally cool. And I kind of feel that they complement each other. I think that usability test, for me, I find it more efficient, especially when I get started and I don't have like high conversions and I just want to build out the funnel. Normally when I split test, I'm already seeing consistent results and I just want to make the small improvements that you mentioned, like 0.5% in conversion can mean a whole lot of money. But it's irrelevant to do A/B testing when you're not converting big amounts of traffic, because it's useless. It will take a lot of resources, as you mentioned, a lot of time in order to get to conclusive results. So can you please walk us through about the onboarding process in Conversion Crimes? You guys are offering different templates and different tests. So can you share a bit about, let's say I'm an e-commerce store owner. I just started out. I don't have a lot of conversion just yet. So I come to Conversion Crimes. What should I do?
Yeah. So the easiest way to get started is, and the cheapest way really, is we have a free tool, Scout, where you can get 1 test per month for free. And it's really no frills. You can't like target the audience. You can't like do customized tasks or anything like that, but it'll give you like a really good taste of it. And then we have our templates where it's like we've written like, oh my God, I don't even know how many tests we've written. And so we kind of have been taking those and putting them into templates that people can use. So you just like click it and it automatically like writes the test for you. And you just have to kind of go edit it and then you can run it. And It's super flexible. We recommend 5 videos per test because that gets you about 85% of the issues in a flow. And yeah, you can it's super flexible depending on budget and all that kind of stuff. And then we have like expert insights where if like you don't want to watch the videos, you don't know how to turn those into like actionable items, then we watch the videos for you. We make a summary and we write a report and we're like, okay, here's like the 5 things you need to change on your site to kind of fix it. So that's kind of a little walkthrough of the various options.
Awesome. And what would you say are the pros of using like a usability test in opposing to watching like just recording sessions and heat maps?
Yeah, so those will tell you like where a problem is, but it's not going to tell you why, right? Like, why are people clicking over there? Why are people abandoning over here? Why are they doing this kind of thing? And they're not going to tell you. People, it's like they kind of think conversion rate optimization is about removing friction from buying, but it's also about increasing the motivation to buy. So with user testing, you're literally hearing what someone's thinking in their head. And they're like, yeah, I'm not going to buy that because like this reason, or I'm not confident that the sizing is right and I don't like their return policy, And so you're starting to understand like why these people are not going to buy. And then why they're bailing out at that point, which you can't get from Heatmaps. You can't get that from those click recordings. You just can't get that.
Let's say you've probably done a lot of usability tests in the past. And I was wondering, what are like most powerful questions or best practices to hold a good usability test?
So it's really about understanding the goal, like what kind of information that you want to get out of it. Like, sure, you can run a generic test and just kind of like run people through. But what usability testing really stands out is you can ask very specific questions. Like, for example, if you have a bunch of people asking in support, like, hey, what color backpacks does your product come in? Like, yo, that's on the product page. Like, why are you asking support this? Why are we getting all of these requests? And so you can literally just have a tester go through and be like, hey, what color backpacks do this come in? Or what color do these backpacks come in? You can see them like lost, confused, like all of this. So it's really about like, what questions do you have about the business that you want to get answered, and writing a very targeted test around that.
I know that one objection that people have maybe to usability tests is the fact that customers won't necessarily state, they won't say the way they would act. So let's say someone would say, okay, I would have purchased this, but in reality, they won't pay for the product. How do you handle this objection? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, well, with unmoderated testing, the person is in their own home. They're recording a video. It's not like someone's sitting next to them and like watching over them, that they're kind of like scared to say something. So we found that they're a lot more free with their criticisms and their thoughts. To do usability testing, you don't necessarily need someone in your target audience, but the people that use it definitely think that. And the closer you are to the target audience, the more nuanced the feedback that you're going to get. There's like a nuance to it. So when you get someone that's never seen your site before and they're pretty close to your target market, you can just kind of understand their thought process that they go through. And one of the questions that I've been adding at the end of tests recently is, if this wasn't a test, and you were interested in purchasing this, is there anything you would do before purchase on or off this website before you made a commitment? Please do that and tell us how it changes things for you or not. And it's really interesting to see what people do. One thing is they're not trusting reviews. So they will literally, if they have reviews, they will go to Amazon, especially for like e-commerce stores, they will go to Amazon, they will verify the review. They will figure it out. Because they've seen so many like fake reviews, but social proof is like such like a big part of conversions. And so that was really interesting. So they seem to trust video testimonials more. So that was
interesting. Can you give more anecdotes, interesting anecdotes or trends that you've seen lately?
The other thing that is pretty widespread across is messaging. So it's messaging and the social proof. A lot of people just don't understand what they're looking at when they land on something. And especially for like e-commerce stores, they make these like big hero images that have just like like an image, or they're showing like a collection or something. But when someone lands on that for the first time, they make a misconception about what the store is about because they only see like what it's kind of going to. But for returning customers that continuously shop, for example, like a fashion store or something like that that's selling like clothes, they like that. So it's like I've kind of been wondering if it's like there's something you can do about that for those two different kind of use cases. Because the first time when first someone lands on it on the first time, they're confused about what it is, what the store's about. Oh, maybe this isn't for me because it's showing like a purse or a bag when they're looking for like a dress or something. So then they assume that the whole store is about bags and they bail out, right? But the person that is a customer and they know their products and they're like, ooh, new collection, like let me see what's new. It's kind of interesting.
And let's say I want to build a testing strategy. So how would you suggest to do this? I mean, you mentioned before, based on the Atomic Habits book, doing one test every day for the whole year, or doing 5 tests, which you also mentioned. Would you do like every time you launch a funnel, or would you do 2 types of groups, returning customers versus new customers? How would you build a strategy of, let's say I have resources?
Yeah, so it depends on the business and kind of where they're at. So when you do a test, you have to have the ability to actually execute on the actionable items. So if you don't have the ability to execute, or it's something that maybe you can do like once a quarter or something like that, we have like a monthly subscription where you can run like one test every month. So you run the test, you kind of find the actionable items, and you set aside that time every month to, like it's like 2 hours to watch the videos, and then, however much time to execute on the biggest items. Because some items you'll get and you're like, oh man, that's a complete redesign. Let me put that aside when I need to come back to that later. And what's the easiest, fastest way that I can kind of fix these problems? And so that's how I kind of see it. If you're working on something like a redesign, a lot of times they'll do it like every week for a set period of time, for like 4 to 6 weeks or something. They want to like fast iterate on InVision or Figma files or something like that. You can test anything with a link. Like it doesn't have to be like a live website. It could be like, hey, let's test stuff before you actually like develop it and put it on there. So there's also another way that I've been working on recently, and I'm kind of calling it like a conversion insurance. So it's like, rather than do a test with 5, we're doing like one test with one person on each device and rotating it. So for one client, we're doing it daily. So every day we're running someone on their site, checking all the core functionalities and picking stuff up. And we're sending like reports out. So this is so if like the Shopify plugin or something gets updated and it messes up your cart, you're running traffic or like whatever, that you can find those things super fast before like something, you actually lose more money off that. You're wasting the ad funds.
These guys, so I'm not sure that I completely understand. So it's one user that enters via each device on a daily basis?
Yeah, so we can do all 4 in one day if you wanted, but we just recommend like we cycle through like iPhone, Android, Windows, Mac. And so every day we're doing a different one. So like Monday, iOS, Tuesday, Android, Wednesday, Windows, and Thursday. And then we just like start over, right? And we just kind of rotate it through. So yeah, that's been really interesting. We've gotten like really good results with that. I think that, oh gosh, I don't want to quote this without having this stuff in front of me, but it was something like 20% of tests that we ran found something.
Oh, wow.
And 30% of them were considered high priority. Like the developers immediately jumped on that and
that's
fixed
a lot.
this thing. Yeah, this is for this.
This is pretty bad. This is pretty bad.
Yeah. For this particular client, they were running 1 to 2 million in Facebook ads every month. So they were like anything that was like, even if it was like 0.05%, like kind of thing, they wanted to fix that because that meant a lot of money to them. So.
Do you have any examples that comes to mind, that something that popped up, like that e-commerce store owners should be aware and they might be overlooking based on what you find in these types of usability tests?
Oh man, we found like bugs in the checkout and stuff that happens. And literally they would go, it's like a 5-minute fix one time. So it was they had a financing app. So a lot of shops have this now where they do like financing and then they send the information to another application. And what we found was the information was being sent incorrectly. The users were getting an error that they didn't create. It was just an error from them sending the data in the wrong format, and the users couldn't figure it out and bailed. It was a 5-minute fix. So, okay, we're just going to like take that off the form for now, whatever, it's not working. And then they can just fill it in on their own when they get sent to the financing site. And it was like an immediate increase in conversion. It was something like 131% or something. It's hard for me to do these off the top of my head.
It's fine. All good.
But it was an immediate like overnight thing. And then not only that, their cart value went up. They went from around $1,000 in cart value to $1,600 to $1,800 because now people could get the financing, so they were buying more.
Nice.
So that was just huge, and that was like $150 test, and they got like
amazing.
I don't know how much money they made off that.
Quick favor, guys. If you enjoy these shows and have been a listener for quite some time now, we would really appreciate it if you could take the time to give us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcast app may be. Having lots of ratings and audience feedback makes our show become more visible across multiple platforms. And it also supports our mission of helping as many people as possible to become better marketers and better entrepreneurs. So if you're not driving and it wouldn't be dangerous, pause this thing right now and give us an honest review over your podcast app. And we will love you even more than we already do. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I wanted to ask you, I did a demo, like the scouting that you mentioned, the scout feature. I got inputs about one of my funnels, and I was wondering, the guy gave really good inputs, but he sounded like a marketer. I was wondering who are the testers? Are there different types of testers? Obviously, you can choose, but can you elaborate about the testers?
Yeah, they are from all walks of life, really. Actually, one of our next major upgrades is kind of more to the demographics and organizing the testers a little bit better. We have like software developers, teachers, students, marketers. We've got designers. We've just got ordinary people, stay-at-home moms. Like, they have all kinds of consultant jobs. It's really all over the map. What I found is that people, like, it's kind of funny. A lot of our stuff, our testers use it as kind of like a side hustle or side income. It's not something they can do all the time because it actually has to be a match for them to get the job. But some of them are like kind of high earners, and I'm like, why are you doing this for like this? Why are you like, you don't need this? But they're like, yeah, like I just really love books. And my wife gets mad at me for spending too much money on books. So I do this as like a side thing to like, and that's my book budget for the month. Because it's not like a bunch of money that they're getting or anything, it's like $15 here or there, or like what have you. So it's been really interesting to see that. But so with Scout, you can't really choose the testers. We have like designated testers as Scout. So some of them are definitely more savvy than others.
Okay, what other trends are you seeing in these days with regards to usability tests in the usability test landscape? Because for me, I look for solutions, and your solution kind of was, I guess, one of the only that popped up. And I was wondering if you've been seeing any trends in the usability test landscapes in the last few years. What do you expect will happen in the next upcoming years?
Yeah, so like user testing and user Zoom are the biggest two in the space. They both had like $150 million in funding, and they've gone like super enterprise. And like the stuff that we're hearing from users of usability testing is like, it's too complicated. It's so complicated, and they want to sign you up for like a year contract. And it's quite expensive to use them. And so kind of what we're doing is making it like super easy to use and super flexible, because this tool is super powerful, and I really want to make it accessible for all businesses. So it's like, how can I make it easy? So we created the templates, we created Scout to like share it with more people, and flexibility. Like, instead of just having one test size, you can choose your test size. Like, if you just want to know, like, hey, what do people think when they land on my website? Do they understand what it is? That's like $10 per tester. So it's like, at other platforms, you have to buy like the whole 20-minute test or whatever, when that's like a 2-minute like quick test. So why should you have to pay for all of that? So it's about like flexibility. The other thing is like I kind of talked about earlier with A/B testing. Now, usability testing does fit in really well with A/B testing, because if you find out where the friction is and where the problems are, and then you're actually able to go like, okay, let's go A/B test like different solutions for this and find out what the winner is, right? So that's where it kind of like pairs really well. But like I said, like it's just kind of inaccessible for a lot of businesses. It takes time. Like if you don't have the right traffic, if you don't, have the resources to hire the right people, this sort of thing, you can't really do. And also you have to have enough traffic, on the website. Like some stores, for example, like this 7-figure store that I know of, they only get 100 conversions a month, but they're selling electric bikes. No. So it's like $5,000 for their product. So it would take them 10 months to A/B test something for the 1,000 conversions that it requires. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. And I'm also seeing people saying that as like time has gone on, templates and stuff like this have gotten way better. So a lot of like the low hanging fruit stuff is taken care of in these templates. So now it's more about personalization, like for your website and your audience, what are people struggling with? What do they understand? What isn't easy for them to use, rather than kind of these big aggregate enterprise sites. Like a lot of that stuff, doesn't work on those sites.
Interesting. And I want to maybe to elaborate about one point that you mentioned about execution, because sometimes you need to do a usability test in correlation to the amount that you can implement and execute. And it makes a lot of sense what you said, that you have to A/B test, probably you have to A/B test afterwards. And I was wondering, when do you hear, let's say, a usability tester is giving you advice and it should turn you like a red light that you might need to ignore this advice? Or when do you know if this advice is significant enough, or how do you prioritize what to implement? Because when you do a usability test, you get a lot of inputs. Obviously, you need to prioritize based on impact, but sometimes maybe this specific user isn't a good representative of the whole pool of users. What advice would you share about this?
Yeah, I would say like anything about pricing to ignore. For the most part, because unless they're like the exact target demographic, it's really irrelevant what they think about the pricing and things like that. So that's one thing. Two, it's sometimes testers, they won't have the exact domain knowledge. Like they may not understand a term or something like that, where it could be true and it could not be true. It's very like dependent on the industry, business, and this sort of thing. So some kind of stuff you do have to kind of throw out. Like, okay, that was just one person that said that. And this other thing they did in this test made me believe that like they just don't have enough knowledge here or something to kind of like understand that. But you also don't want to use that as an excuse to throw out something that you just don't agree with or don't like, right? You don't want to like, accept the criticism kind of thing. So yeah, those are kind of the things that come up. And as far as like prioritizing, it's like how many of the testers had this problem. So it's 5 testers. Like that's not statistically significant at all, right? But if 3 to 4 testers are having a problem with something, the same problem or very, very similar, then you can assume that that's pretty widespread. And that should be like an area of focus. Whereas if just one tester had an issue, you can assume like, okay, it's probably like an anomaly, like what have you. So you can kind of use it that way. And then about prioritization, it's usually what's closest to the money. If it's a checkout issue, like 100%, we're like doing that, or to add the cart issue, or 100% doing that. It's product page issue, like we're doing that. Whereas like some other stuff, it's like, okay, like they didn't like this thing or what have you. And it's like, is that how much is that going to impact the bottom line? And how much resource is it going to take for me to execute on that, right? So that's kind of a big thing. Like if you don't think it's going to like make that big of a difference, it's going to make it just a little bit easier to use, but it's going to take like 3 days of dev time, maybe not worth it. you
For
know?
sure. And I love what you said about the price and the domain expertise. These are two things that came up when I did usability tests. So everybody complained about the pricing, but these testers, they are sometimes, the fact that they are doing these tests is just because they want to increase their income. So they are not necessarily your target audience. Yes, also what you said about the domain expertise. You probably wouldn't, if they are not specific from their like your avatar, so you probably wouldn't have targeted them. So they don't necessarily know the terms and jargon. And I wanted to ask you, kind of related to a question that I asked you before, in regards to the type of questions that you ask after the test. So how many of them are like scale-based questions, and how many of them you expect the customer, the tester, to elaborate about his experience, not during the testing, but in the conclusion phase? And I wanted to, like, a follow-up question to this, what do you find more impactful? How do you combine?
Like how they're like rating stuff?
Yeah, so for example, I might ask someone to rate on scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate this website to be trustworthy, for example? But another question, so these are scale questions, and they're also more like like questions that you ask them to elaborate, like write a paragraph about your experience. So do you find that this works better? Obviously, it depends, each customer over every funnel, but in general.
On the other platforms, you can like customize a lot of these questions and stuff and kind of ask whatever. On ours, we've kind of standardized it because we're trying to make it easy to use and not make like all these options so it's like overwhelming to create a test. So what we've been doing is after the first test, we ask like how much they trust the site. And at the final screen, we ask how much they trust the site. So you can see the difference. Like overall, did the trust increase the more they use it, or did it decrease, or was it like maintained? So that's one of the ones we do. We also, after each task that they do, have them rate the experience. So like I said, not statistically significant. The data is just there to kind of give you a good benchmark. So afterwards, you can kind of see these comparisons and kind of how you did on trust, design, overall experience, this sort of thing. And then another thing that I recently added is asking them, if you had to Google for the site, what would you Google?
Nice.
And having them like kind of write in. So we're trying to find kind of like the 80-20 of those questions. Like what are the questions that are going to give the most value, and trying to rate those.
What questions normally come up? Like the name of the site and reviews? Is this like the most common?
For like the trust one?
No, but what would they Google? Normally, what the claims they would Google?
Yeah, so it's just like if they had to find the site again, how would they Google? So it's actually just information for you to see, like how, like just to get keywords, like to see how people are using it and stuff. It's just a like a qualitative data point.
Okay, yeah, I misunderstood you, because I thought that you asked them what would you look up in Google in order to verify this site is legit, which is kind of similar to the question that you mentioned before. This is what I thought.
Yeah, that was like the final question that we put on the task, but this is a standardized question we ask for all sites, regardless if like it's in the like process of test taking. Like you don't have to make the test or ask it in a task or anything. It'll automatically show up on the report when you do a test, because it's just interesting. Like, Google's not really, they don't give you that insight anymore. And so we thought that would be a cool thing to add to the end, to say like, well, if you had to get to this e-commerce store again and you don't remember the name of it or like whatever, like how would you Google it? Like what keywords are they using? How are they describing it? It's interesting. Yeah.
Then if anything funny came up.
We just put that out there. So it's only like a couple of weeks. I don't have that quite yet. But it is interesting what they type. And you can actually see patterns as well. Like another thing that we ask is just randomly like 3 words to describe the site.
This one I liked. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, we give them like no context about, just 3 words, whatever you want. And some of them put like scam or like whatever, but you'll see like scam like 3 times and you're like, wow, like, okay. And so it's just like a little word cloud as well. So just like kind of interesting to see that qualitative data, how much it goes across even just 5 testers. You can kind of start to see little patterns.
Amazing. And what is the pricing in Conversion Crimes for like 5 tests? Can you Remind me or the listeners.
Yeah, so it depends on like the templates. It's like $50 to like $200.
Mhm.
Or if you want us to write a custom test for you, it's like $279. And then if you want like us to do the expert insights, where we're doing all the work and just handing you, hey, here's the things to change, just give it to your developer, DIY it, that one's like $899.
Thank you so much, Quinn. Is there anything I forgot to ask or anything that you would like to bring up before we conclude?
No, I think it was a great conversation. You asked great questions. And so, yeah, I just stoked to share my love of usability testing to take over the world.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's a very, as I mentioned before, an overlooked tool. And I love what you guys are doing. And I think a lot of e-commerce store owners can benefit from this, especially the beginners, that they are just starting out and they don't have a lot of conversions and they are kind of stuck and they are just trying to optimize Facebook ads and they think that the pixel might save them. But at the end of the day, you need to improve the offer. And based on these usability tests, you can gain a lot of insights for pretty good for bang for your buck, because as you said, it's not that expensive to get like 5 tests. So I highly recommend Conversion Crimes. Where can people
Oh, wait, before you just reminded me about something. So like for Facebook ad stuff, the test we've been running is to actually show testers the ad.
Oh, nice.
And then send them to the landing page and then actually go through the Facebook ad flow funnel, or from Instagram exploring the account and then going to the store and purchasing. So you can actually do those flows as well. Nice. So sorry, that just came up.
No, it's very important because like you mentioned before, that the customers who are returning or new customers, they react differently. So it makes a lot of sense to show them the whole funnel. They clicked an ad, this is the context. So now they arrive to the landing page. So it's not out of the blue. They have the context because they clicked on the ad beforehand. They were curious. They were attracted to the product. So it makes a lot of sense to test the whole funnel.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how many testers are like unexpected. Or they get something they're just like, oh, I clicked on this and I expected this. And like, where did you send me?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow. How come?
Like I think that a lot of ads, they send stuff to like generic pages when like the ad is like specific. And so it's like you got to send them to something that whatever the ad is, you got to match it. Got to match those expectations. So
I'm kind of shocked that this stuff still happens, but what can I do?
I know. I'm always surprised.
Yes, cool, interesting. So you guys have the website, which is conversioncrimes.com, correct?
Yep.
And are you publishing on any social media platform or anything like that?
Yeah, so I don't have the company account yet. And we're actually going to rename Conversion Crimes. But I'm Quinn Zeda on like Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the things, just my name. That's how I'm kind of doing it right now. But yeah.
Why are you going to rename, and what is the new name? Can you?
I don't know yet. I'm looking for it. Originally when I named it Conversion Crimes, it was like, it's meant to be like tongue in cheek, just kind of have like fun with it. But when people were kind of talking about our brand, people were like, what? Your Conversion Crimes? Like, what is that? And so the people that were talking about us were getting, some of them, not all of them, are getting like weird reactions from peers and coworkers and stuff like that. They really don't like the word crimes. So I was like, okay, nobody gets my joke. It's cool.
I like the name a lot. And I think it's easy, it sticks. And it is what it is. I mean, people are committing conversion crimes, and the usability tests are here to fix it.
Yeah. Well, also, like, as we've been like talking to customers and like learning more, we're realizing that our product is a lot more than just conversions. It's like that is like kind of the end goal of what happens by focusing on customer experience, user experience, and stuff like that. You convert more, you make more money. But they're talking a lot about insights as well. So they're like, wow, you made me rethink my whole strategy from this tester said, like when they went to our site, our store, they didn't realize we were a brand. They were naming our competitors, like, what products do you sell like this? They thought we were like just a mismatch of like a bunch of different brands and products, and we are a brand. So they're like, wow, we got to change our strategy. We have to do more like top of funnel, like awareness, like show this more. So it's not a direct like, oh, change this thing on the website that's going to increase conversion. It's like a bigger, more strategic like insight that they're getting. So
cool.
Feels like I should change the name.
I will also think about the new idea. I love trying to think about new ideas, new names. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, conversion crimes kind of make it feel it's very tactical, but it's not only tactical. It gives you so many insight and gives you, as you said, like a wide picture about strategy and how people perceive your website. It's not only like the tactical change the button to yellow stuff.
Exactly. And then also it's like, I don't want to reprimand people. Like I started thinking about it, like scolding people, you know, like you committed a crime.
Yeah, exactly.
And like feedback in the sense that you get, like sometimes it's really hard to hear what some of the testers are saying. Like I'm like, ooh, that hit me in my soul, you know, and it's already kind of, I mean, it depends on the person. Sometimes people can just like really not take things personally and they're just like, okay, I know what I need to fix and whatever. But some people, it's just like, wow, it's like they spent all this like time, money, love, passion, like building this thing. And for someone to tell you like, oh, this is a piece of crap. Like, you know, like, and then on top of that, we're like, you committed a crime. So I don't know. I just kind of felt like to like soften it.
By the way, in this regard, do you train the testers or do you give them like guidelines not to be like insultive or offensive?
We do have guidelines. Like we're not like, don't like offend people in something that's like offensive. Like we had someone on a test that just said like, sometimes it's like the person that's watching it is like the person on the website. Don't like, you can say like, you could be critical without being an asshole. Exactly. You know, like saying something like just really rude. And for training, we actually, you know, you want people to not really be trained to test websites, but we do train them on communication, like how to communicate their thoughts more and how to add more value to our customers. For example, like some testers will sit there and they'll just like read the text out loud. And I'm like, no, that's obnoxious. It's going to take you like 4 or 5 times the amount of time to read it out loud. Just read it in your head and be like, oh, I think this means this. So we train them in that sense, but we don't train them like on website stuff. I mean, they're just using it. They're seeing it for the first time. You can't really train people for that, but we do focus on like how to give good feedback and communication skills. And we do kind of tell them in the thing, like, just don't talk about pricing. Because you don't want to like confuse people. So like kind of stuff like that is like the extent of our training.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Quinn. It's been a lot of fun. And I, again, highly recommend Conversion Crimes, or probably, I don't know what will be the new name as soon as we publish the podcast. I don't know, guys, if you guys are still going to be Conversion Crimes or not, but yeah, we'll update the link accordingly. And keep enjoying Playa del Carmen.
Oh, awesome. It's beautiful here. If anyone wants to come see me, you're welcome. Sunny beaches, y'all. Nice. But anyways, yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Bye-bye. Have fun.
Bye.
Hi guys, this is Yaron again. Just a few more things before you take off. Number 1, if you want to learn more about e-commerce and marketing, make sure you check out our YouTube channel, which is called EcomXFactor Official. Number 2, check out our Facebook group, which is called EcomXFactor Marketing and E-commerce Mastermind. This is a great place to ask questions and connect with other business owners. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends and colleagues, plus leave a review at your favorite podcast app.